Good evening, dear viewers. Thanks for joining us on the 7 p.m. flash info from the studios of Gov't Television. We begin with the Cameroon government has issued a statement stating that it has neutralized an alleged perpetrator of the October 24, 2020 school massacre in Kumba Southwest region. According to Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi, Minister of Communication, who signed to release one of the separatist fighters named Wonke, who is said to be responsible for the Kumba massacre, was killed by the City Rapid Intervention Battalion, commonly called the B, of the police at Kosala, Kumba Southwest region on the night of October 26, 2020, after gathering information from the local population in the neighborhood. The statement states that Wonke was at the forefront of his gang that turned up in 3 motorcycles and stole life from innocent students and pupils. After fishing out his hideout, the B team were able to recover, among other things, a Rec brand automatic gun, 12 ammunition of 7.62 mm by 39 and 7 mobile phones. The statement also acknowledged the aid of the local population for collaborating with the military to neutralize the perpetrators of that barbaric act. Cameroon's Prime Minister Chief Dr. Gov't has urged African youths to fight so as to reposition the continent on the global scene, just like they fought for the liberation of France and the independence of their various countries. Chief Dr. Gov't was talking yesterday, October 28, 2020, at Congo-Brazzaville on the occasion of the start of the International Colloquium organized in Congo-Brazzaville to mark her 80 years of declaration and 60 years of her independence. The Prime Minister, in his capacity, represented the head of state, President Paul Biya, at the summit, which of course has brought together heads of state and heads of government of the Central African sub-regions, as well as the representative of the French president and international organizations. These leaders were unanimous on the important role played by Brazzaville and the entire French Equatorial Africa in the liberation of France during the Second World War. The French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves, personal representative of Emmanuel Macron, the French president, said France will not be where it is today without the support of French Equatorial Africa. Central African leaders on their part said it is time for Africa to rise to her full potentials. Chief Gov't marked that Africa at all times has been the main provider of the world. Still within our borders, the Cameroon government has also declared Saturday, October 31st as a national day of mourning for victims of the Kumba massacre. According to the statement, the national flag shall throughout that day be flown at half-mast as a symbol of honor to the 7 kids shot dead by alleged separatist fighters. The statement comes 4 days after the tragic incident and 2 days after the head of state reacted by condemning and extending condolences on his Twitter handle. Since the October 24th incident, which attracted widespread condemnation from both the national and international community, peaceful march has been carried out by mostly women in the major towns of the country. The government, on her part, had sent a ministerial delegation to the Southwest region to console the families and examine the loss. According to reports from the Southwest region, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, promised the victims and their families that the government is ready to pay the hospital bills of all the injured students. Algeria's Grand Mosque, the world's 3rd biggest and Africa's largest, will host its first public prayers on Wednesday, a year and a half after constructions were completed. Known locally as the Jama El Jader, the modernist structure extends across 27.75 hectares and is smaller only than the 2 mosques in Mecca and Medina, Islam's holiest site in Saudi Arabia. To its critics, the mosque is a vanity project and a symbol of the megalomania of former autocrat Bouteflika, who was forced out in April last year after mass street protests against his 2-decade-long rule. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune had been expected to inaugurate the mosque prayer hall, whose maximum capacity is 120,000, at the event yesterday, October 28, 2020, which is the eve of the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad. But his presence was in doubt after his office announced the day before that he had been hospitalized. Tebboune had gone into self-isolation last week following suspected coronavirus cases among his aides. But the presidency said Tuesday that Tebbo's state of health does not raise any concern. It was unclear how many people would be allowed to attend the prayers amid the novel coronavirus pandemic. Ivorians will this Saturday, October 31st, go to the polls to elect a new president. Ahead of the vote, one of the four candidates contesting in the presidential election, Kwadio Konan Bertin, popularly known as KKB, is calling on voters to cast their ballot. His call comes after opposition parties asked their supporters to boycott the polls. They have called for a boycott, accusing the electoral authorities and the Constitutional Council of being biased and unable to guarantee a fair election. And according to reports from the country, dozens of would-be candidates have been barred from running in the election, including former President Laurent Gbagbo and ex-rebel chief Guillaume Soro, who both played key roles in the 2010-11 crisis. At least 30 people have been killed in clashes in different towns since August, when Alassane Ouattara announced he would run again for the presidential elections. Tanzania is counting votes after polls in its high-stake election closed on Wednesday evening. President Joseph Magufuli, eyeing a second five-year term, voted in the country's new capital of Dodoma. A total of 29 million voters were registered to vote in 80,115 polling stations, where they had to choose between 15 presidential candidates and 399 seats in parliament, in addition to the councillors. I call on Tanzanians to come out in large numbers today and vote for the decision that everyone has in their heart. I must also emphasize the need to preserve peace as a nation, because life will go on after the elections. May God bless all the voters, and may God also bless Tanzania, said Magufuli shortly after casting his ballot. But even after he made an appeal for peace, the opposition was accusing the country's security agency of blocking its agents at police stations. In Dar es Salaam, a female parliamentarian candidate for the opposition Chadema party was arrested by police before being released later on Wednesday. And according to Magufuli's main challenger, Tundu Lissu, he had received reports of widespread ballot stuffing. In semi-autonomous Zanzibar, the opposition said its members had found ballots pre-marked for President Magufuli. First results of the votes are expected immediately, as Tanzania's National Election Commission, that is the NEC chairman Judge Semestocos Kajet, dismissed the report of pre-ticked ballots as false. Dear viewers, thanks for your kind attention. This is the package we gathered for this edition of the news. Stay tuned for the 8 p.m. edition, and of course we see you tomorrow at midday. Until then, good evening and good night.